Hello there everyone, so in today's video we're going to be doing some watercolouring because a company called Fuumuui kindly reached out to me and asked if we wanted to try their brushes, and of course I said yes because I'm always interested in trying new things, but also I thought it might kick me into actually doing some watercolouring art again because it's been a while. So this is an 8-piece sable watercolour set that comes in this actually really lovely box. The design on the box is really nice and you could quite easily just keep them in there to store them when you're not using them. Now this set actually contains multiple different shapes and sizes. So first impressions, honestly, this seems to be quite a nice starter set, especially if you have no brushes but you really want to try it and do some watercolouring. You get a nice range here without it being too much or too expensive. So you get pointed rounds, flats and cat tongues oval wash, and they range from pretty sizable brushes all the way to a smaller one that you can also create fine detail with. So obviously with them being watercolour brushes, they are supposed to be better for watercolour than say other mediums like acrylic, and the reason for that is watercolour brushes hold more water in them, which obviously is what you need for when using watercolour, because if you use brushes that don't hold so much water, you're not going to get the same results out of it. And believe me, I have done that. I have used all sorts of brushes for different things they're not meant for, and there is definitely a difference. And you can definitely tell that these are watercolour brushes because they do hold quite a bit of water, so you can get really lovely washes on your whole piece. I did a wash of water just on the whole paper first, and I sometimes find that kind of hard to do before the water actually starts drying up and I get to the part of adding colour, which is usually because I'm using the wrong type of brush, like a non-watercolour brush that then doesn't hold enough water to then put onto the paper. And I've done that plenty of times, but these brushes worked very well for that. I managed to get the whole paper with a wash of water before I then started adding the colour in. And I just wanted to kind of start with something simple and a little bit easy just to get into, to get a bit of a feel for the brushes as well. So I made a Galaxy, and of course me being me, it had to be a purple themed Galaxy. And for this I mainly used kind of a range of the mid and larger size brushes. Except for the stars at the end, I used the fine brush for that to obviously get them a little bit more detailed. And for the stars as well, I used gouache rather than watercolour, but equally you can still just use watercolour brushes for that. So that was just my first little play around. Then I wanted to do something a bit different, so I got some different paints out that I've had for a while, and I just haven't really used them yet because I guess I haven't really found what to use them for. But I have these neon paints that I just really love. I just haven't really found something, like I said, to use them for. So I knew I kind of wanted to try and use them, but I then was unsure of what to do with them. So what I did was actually find some inspiration from some other videos, and these were from Mira Bylers. She does these sketchbook ideas. Now if you're not familiar with her, of course I'll leave a link to her channel in the description box down below, but I watched a few of her sketchbook ideas videos and just found a few things that inspired me to then create the pieces that I made. So first of all, I then used these neon paints to create basically lines across the paper with the different colours, and that was going to be the base, and I used one of the larger brushes for that. And then once that had dried, what I was going to do is on each layer use the black watercolour paint and then basically do silhouettes of different scenes over that. So as you can see on the pink one, I did kind of a cityscape with just loads of buildings on. And then I did a mountain range on the blue one. We got trees or a forest on the green, and we got flowers and we got waves and some grass. So I basically just repeated this throughout all the way down in the corresponding colours. And I purposely used the black watercolour to really stand out against that neon paint. And honestly, I'm actually really happy with how this turned out. Like I said, I love neon colours, but I also think they can be a little bit hard to use and figure out what to do with. But I think this could actually be a really cool pattern on things if it was just cleaned up a little bit. And I just love how bright and colourful it is, and you still get that contrast with the neon colours, but then that black watercolour on top, and they just still kind of pop out at you. So that one was directly inspired from one of Mira Bylers' videos, and the last one that I made was also inspired from one of hers. So basically we have a bunch of frames of different sizes and shapes all across the paper. I started out using a smaller brush to create these frames. Again, here I then used the black watercolour paint and just basically started in one corner, free-handed it because it doesn't have to be perfect. I just wanted to have a bit of fun and also just try out these brushes. I did the typical shape that would be a canvas or a picture on a wall, and then just started kind of mixing it up. So did both portrait, did landscape, and then also different shapes like ovals, rounds and octagons. So I first filled in all the paper with the frames, and then of course left that to dry. Then it was time to jump in and start actually putting pictures into these frames. And that was actually really fun doing it this way instead of say just doing one picture on a piece of paper. You kind of have all these little frames on the same piece of paper that you then fill in, and you can literally put anything in there. So I did a very wide range of styles and scenes and themes. As you can see, I did quite a lot of nature. So we got flowers, sky, grass, birds, pineapple. We have a couple where we're kind of looking out through a window. I kind of thought that was a cool idea. We have flower fields. There's a teapot on a gingham table. we have a pink gemstone, and then I also just did a galaxy on a small one here, just because why not? It's kind of almost a mini version of the big one I did. And it did take quite a long time to kind of fill all this in and also just come up with the different ideas. But I also really enjoyed it, and like I said, I actually really like the result of all these different things just kind of being placed into the same picture through multiple smaller pictures of different sizes and shapes. And it kind of just makes me really happy just looking at this page. And again, I almost used all the different brushes on this because some of them I just covered a whole frame with one colour, or I did some gradients. And then of course I also used the more detailed brush to get the details for the flowers, the pineapple, the gem, the stars, and all those smaller things. So even though it's by no means perfect or anything, I just quite enjoyed the process and actually really quite like how it turned out as well. Just the idea of it, and like I said, it just makes me happy actually looking at it. Same thing with the neon really. To me, I can't really look at neon colours and not be happy. They just kind of have that effect on me, but then I do just like colours in general. But anyway, these were basically the things I ended up making with the brushes as I was trying them out, using both the larger and smaller ones. And like I already said, they have a nice range of the different sizes and shapes. So this is quite a nice starter set if you don't have any brushes at all and you want to try and do some watercolor painting. Of course, if you're interested in these brushes, there will be links in the description box down below so you can have a look for yourself. I certainly enjoyed using them and they'll definitely go in my collection of brushes, and I have also decided that I now want to start keeping my brushes separate because at the moment I just have all my brushes in one container, and that's why I'm kind of using the wrong ones for the wrong things, because I just grab one that I think looks nice. But I actually want to start separating my brushes and keeping the watercolors separate for the other ones, so I don't accidentally use watercolor brushes for acrylic and then kind of ruin them a bit, because then they're never the same again, I find. So I'm definitely going to be doing that now. So these will go in a holder for themselves and only be used with watercolor or gouache, because I would like them to last as long as possible. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video, maybe getting a bit of inspiration for things you can try out yourself. I got most of mine from Mira Bylers. Maybe you can get some from me, which then kind of is from her. But again, thank you so much to Fuumuui for sending me these brushes to try out. I really enjoyed using them and will definitely be using them again in the future. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.